Welcome back to another real story. Slow down, get comfortable, and let the rain carry you through a moment from someone else's life. I'd love to know, what country are you listening from? And is this your first story with us? Story 1. The receipt that unraveled my life. I think the most dangerous thing in the world is a quiet, suburban Tuesday. The day my life ended began with the gentle hum of the dishwasher and the scent of overripe bananas on the counter. My name is Chloe, and for 12 years, I built a fortress of normalcy around myself, my husband Ben, and our 2 daughters. It was a fortress with cracks I had learned to stop seeing. That Tuesday, I was hunting for a pen, not for anything dramatic, just to sign a permission slip for my youngest's field trip to the planetarium. The junk drawer in our kitchen island was its usual chaos of twist ties, dead batteries, and takeout menus. My fingers brushed against a folded slip of paper, crisp and foreign among the soft clutter. It was a receipt from a jewelry store in the city, dated 2 weeks prior, for a pair of diamond earrings, and it was made out to Ben's credit card. My breath didn't hitch. My heart didn't stop. It was a quieter, more insidious feeling, a sudden, profound coldness in the center of my chest, as if a tiny, vital part of me had just turned to ice. Our anniversary was 6 months away. My birthday had passed with a nice dinner and a new gardening set. The earrings weren't for me. I stood there, the permission slip forgotten, the hum of the dishwasher now sounding like a distant roar. I carefully folded the receipt and put it in the pocket of my jeans. The weight of it was negligible, but it felt like I was carrying a stone. I finished making the school lunches. I kissed my girls goodbye as Ben, ever the cheerful dad, hustled them out the door with promises of pizza night. I waved from the doorway, my smile a practiced, muscle memory thing. The normalcy of our life, which I had always worn like a comfortable sweater, now felt like a costume. I started to see the other cracks. Ben's new work trips that always seemed to fall on weekends when his partner, Mark, never mentioned them. The way his phone, which used to charge on the nightstand, now lived face down in his office overnight. The subtle distance in his hugs, not a lack of warmth, but a shift in its qualitative realm, an embrace that sought comfort to one that performed it. Id chalked it all up to stress, to the mundane erosion of a long marriage. We were partners, co-parents, a team. The romance had faded, sure, but it was replaced with something deeper, wasn't it? A shared history, a mutual investment in our little world. I told myself I was being paranoid. The receipt could be for a client gift, a surprise for his mother. 100 explanations spiraled in my mind, each more desperate and less convincing than the last. I spent the day in a fog cleaning things that were already clean, scrolling through my phone without seeing the screen. Have you ever had a gut feeling you chose to ignore? A tiny, nagging voice that whispers the truth, but you turn up the volume of your daily life to drown it out. I'd been doing that for months, maybe years. I convinced myself that peace was more valuable than truth. That day, the voice wasn't a whisper anymore. It was the crisp, printed truth in my pocket. The escalation was slow, methodical. I became a detective in my own home, a role that filled me with self-loathing. I checked credit card statements online if earrings were there, a stark line item. I found nothing else. He was careful, or this was a one-off. I wasn't sure which possibility sickened me more. I started watching him, really watching. I saw the faint, fleeting smile that would touch his lips when he glanced at his phone before quickly erasing it. I heard the lowered voice in his home office, the one he used for work calls, at 9 p.m. I felt the chasm between us in our king-sized bed, wide enough to hold a secret life. The confrontation didn't happen in a dramatic shout. It happened in our parked car after work, a week later. We'd driven to pick up the pizza, the embodiment of our promised normal night. The car was filled with the greasy, comforting smell. The radio played softly. I couldn't carry the stone in my pocket any longer. "Ben," I said, my voice strangely calm. I found a receipt for diamond earrings. I didn't look at him. I stared straight ahead at the neon sign of the pizza parlor, its buzz faintly audible. The air in the car changed. It became thick, charged. He was silent for a long moment. Then a sigh. Not a sigh of guilt, but of exasperation. "Chloe, for God's sake. They're for Linda in accounting. Her retirement gift. The partners went in on it." His voice was smooth, practiced. It was a good lie. Plausible. Linda was retiring. It made perfect sense. Ice in my chest thawed for a second, flooding me with a shameful, dizzying relief. I was the paranoid wife. I had almost broken our peace over nothing. "Oh," I said, a weak, pathetic sound. "I am sorry. I just saw it," and he reached over and squeezed my knee. "It's okay. I should have told you. Didn't want you to think I'd forgotten our anniversary or something." He smiled, the warm, crinkly-eyed smile I'd fallen in love with. We got the pizza. We drove home. We ate with our girls, laughing at their stories. That night, he made love to me with a tenderness that felt like an apology. And I accepted it, burying my doubts deep, choosing my fortress. The false hope lasted for 4 days. 4 days where I chastised myself, vowed to be better, to reconnect, to trust. Then, on Saturday afternoon, Ben was mowing the lawn. His laptop was open on the kitchen table, chiming with a new email. It was from his personal account, which he'd forgotten to log out of. The sender name was the preview text read. "Can't wait to see you Tuesday. Wearing the earrings and nothing else." The world didn't go dark. It went terribly, painfully bright. Every detail of my sunlit kitchen, the water stain on the ceiling, the crayon drawing on the fridge, the lonely sock on the floor seared itself into my vision. The roar was back, this time inside my skull. I clicked it open. It wasn't just one email. It was a chain, a love story, plans, pet names, references to hotel rooms, to lies told to me. Her name was Elise. The emotional details were worse than the physical ones. He told her about our struggles, painted me as distant, cold. He shared private jokes with her, the kind we used to have. He bought her the earrings after they'd spent a weekend in the city. A weekend he told me was a team-building retreat. I walked out the back door. Ben was shirtless, pushing the mower, earbuds in. He saw me, saw my face, and the machine coughed to a stop. He pulled out an earbud. "Chloe." I didn't scream. I just said, "Elise says she can't wait to see you Tuesday." The color drained from his face. It was a complete, total erasure. In that moment, every lie, every performance, every stolen moment was written there. He didn't try the lie again. He just stood there, sweat glistening on his skin, grass clippings stuck to his ankles, and said, "Oh God, Chloe." The climax wasn't in that moment. It was in the weeks that followed, in the terrible, clinical unraveling. It was in the therapist's office, a sterile room where our love was autopsied. He cried, he begged, he promised it was over, that it was a mistake, a crisis of meaning, that he loved me, loved our family. He used words like emptiness and lost. I sat there, my hands folded in my lap, the ice in my chest having spread to my veins. I felt nothing but a profound, echoing numbness. The rage came later, in violent, solitary burst screaming into a pillow, smashing a plate in the sink. But in that office, I was just gone. The man across from me was a stranger who knew all my passwords. The real heart of the story, the core emotional confrontation, happened in a setting I never expected. My childhood bedroom revisited. I'd taken the girls to my mother's house for a weekend to breathe. One night, I found myself in my old room, now a guest room. The floral wallpaper was still there, faded. I sat on the bed, a 38-year-old woman with a life in ashes, and I looked at a photo on the dresser. It was of me at 22 with Ben. We were at a beach, windswept and grinning, our arms around each other, our futures a blank, glorious horizon. I stared at those two young, hopeful faces, and I didn't cry for the loss of my husband. I cried for the loss of her, that young woman who believed in forever, in safety, in the simple, solid truth of a shared life. She was the one who was truly gone, betrayed long before I found the receipt. The confrontation was with her ghost. I had to tell her she was wrong. I had to tell her that the love of her life would one day look at her across a therapist's office and explain his infidelity with the vocabulary of a self-help book. I had to let her go. The story doesn't end with a neat resolution. Ben moved out. We're navigating the jagged path of separation. Some days, I hate him with a purity that frightens me. Other days, I miss my friend, the father of my children, the ghost of the man in the beach photo. The fortress is gone. I live in a wide-open, terrifying plain now, with my two daughters as my only compass. I am rebuilding not a fortress, but a different kind of shelterone with windows, where the light comes in, and so, I know, might the rain. Thank you for listening to my story. It's a pain I know so many carry in silence. If you've ever faced a betrayal that reshaped your world, please share your experience in the comments below. There is a strange comfort in knowing we don't walk these broken roads alone. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real, raw stories of love, loss, and the difficult journey of survival. Story 2. The picture that unraveled our family. I never thought my entire life could fit inside a single, unmarked envelope. But there it was, sitting on our kitchen island like a bomb wrapped in plain white paper. My hands didn't even shake as I opened it. I think it'd already gone numb, a full 5 minutes before the truth even spilled out. This is the story of how a photograph didn't just break my heart, it shattered my entire understanding of who I was and who the man I loved for 15 years really is. My name is Chloe. It was a Tuesday, the kind of suburban morning that feels copied and pasted from the one before. I was packing lunches on butter and jelly for Emma, turkey on whole wheat for Benwell, my husband. David scrolled through his phone at the table, his coffee going cold. The sunrise was painting our kitchen in soft, peach-colored light, glinting off the stainless steel appliances Wed saved for 3 years to buy. It was our sanctuary, this house. Wed chosen every paint swatch, every floor tile together. Emma, our 8-year-old, was humming a song from a cartoon as she tied her shoes, her brow furrowed in concentration. Ben, at 12, was already in his own world, earbuds in, foot tapping under the table. David looked up and smiled at me, the same warm, crinkly-eyed smile that had greeted me every morning for over a decade. Big presentation today, he said, stretching. Might be late. I nodded, leaning over to wipe a smudge of jelly from Emma's cheek. Don't forget the parent-teacher conference at 4, I reminded him. He gave a thumbs up, his eyes already drifting back to his screen. That was the first crack, so subtle I'd trained myself not to see it. The way his attention was always just slightly elsewhere, like he was listening to a radio station I couldn't tune into. The second crack was in the mail. After the kids were on the bus and David's car had disappeared down the cul-de-sac, I gathered the stack from the box. Bills, catalogs, a postcard from my mother, and the plain white envelope. No return address. Our address was typed, not handwritten. It felt heavy, but not with weight, with intention. I almost threw it away, thinking it was some weird marketing thing. But something, a prickling at the base of my skull, told me to open it. Inside was a single, glossy 5x7 photograph. It was a professional family portrait. There was David, looking a few years younger, his hair slightly darker. He was sitting on a rustic wooden bench, wearing a navy sweater I didn't recognize. Beside him was a woman with kind eyes and long, dark hair, her head tilted towards him. And on their laps, a little boy, maybe 3 years old, with a shock of sandy blonde hair and David's exact smile. They looked happy. They looked complete. They looked like a family. didn't spin. The floor didn't drop out. It was worse. Everything just stopped. The humming of the refrigerator faded. The light from the window went flat and cold. I stood there in the middle of my perfect kitchen, holding proof that my perfect life was a stage set. I don't know how long I stood there. It could have been seconds or an hour. My body moved on autopilot. I put the photograph face down on the island. I made another cup of tea I didn't drink. I sat at the table and stared at the wall where our own family portrait hung me. David, Ben, Emma, all in matching denim, laughing in a field of sunflowers. The lie of it was suddenly suffocating. I thought of 1,000 tiny moments. The business trips that always seemed to fall on a Thursday. The new, secretive passcode on his phone last year. His occasional, profound sadness that he'd blame on work stress. The way he'd sometimes look at Ben with an expression I could never quite place. Was it pride? Or was it something else? A comparison. I felt like an archaeologist of my own marriage, and every memory was a bone that no longer fit the skeleton I thought I knew. Here's a question for you, because I've thought about it every single day since. What's the one piece of evidence you could never explain away? The thing that, once you saw it, all the denial in the world couldn't erase. For me, it was that little boy's smile. It wasn't just similar to David's. It was a carbon copy. A biological fact printed in glossy finish. I didn't confront him that night. I played my part. I went to the parent-teacher conference, my body a hollow shell, my voice a stranger's. David met me there, charming the teacher, squeezing my shoulder. I flinched. He didn't seem to notice. At home, I waited until he was in the shower. It never invaded his privacy before. I believed in trust, but trust was a ghost now. I took his laptop, my fingers ice cold. His password was still the kids' birthdays. The betrayal of that normalcy made me nauseous. It wasn't hard to find. He wasn't even that careful, or maybe he never thought it'd look. A separate email account logged in. Receipts for gifts, a dollhouse, a toddler bike, things our children had outgrown. Flight confirmations to a city 3 states away, always for a single night. And then the photos. Dozens of them in a cloud folder labeled work docs. More pictures of the boy Lucas, according to the file names. Lucas at a birthday party. Lucas on a swing. Lucas sleeping on David's chest. And her name was Alina. There were pictures of them too at a farmer's market, sharing ice cream. They looked comfortable, settled. This wasn't a fling. This was a parallel life. The confrontation didn't happen in a screaming match. It happened in the quiet of our bedroom, the blue light of his laptop screen illuminating our faces like we were underwater. He came out of the bathroom, toweling his hair, and saw me sitting on the bed. The computer opened to a picture of him and Lucas building a sandcastle. The color drained from his face so completely I thought he might pass out. "Chloe," he whispered, the word a broken thing. "Who is he, David?" My voice was terrifyingly calm. "Who is Lucas?" He didn't try to deny it. He just crumpled, sitting heavily on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. The story spilled out in ragged pieces. A connection from a work conference 5 years ago. It started as a friendship, then more. She knew about me, about us, from the beginning. She hadn't wanted to disrupt his real family, he said, making me flinch at the term. Lucas was an accident, but she chose to have him. David had been supporting them, visiting them, being a father to this other child for 3 years. "I never meant for you to find out," he kept saying, as if that was the sin, the discovery, not the years of deceit. There was a week of false hope. He cried, he begged, he promised to end it, to cut all ties. He said I was his life, his real life. He started going to therapy. He was transparent with his phone. For a few fragile days, I let myself believe in the possibility of repair. I thought of the kids, of our home, of the history that was woven into my very bones. Maybe, with enough work, we could survive this. Maybe this other family was a compartmentalized mistake he could close the door on. The climax came not from him, but from a stranger. Alina called me. Shed found my number. Her voice was trembling, not with anger, but with a desperate grief. "I am sorry to call you," she said, "but he told me he's choosing you, that he has to let us go for the sake of his legitimate kids." The word legitimate hung in the air, poisonous. "Chloe, Lucas asks for his daddy every night. He doesn't understand. You have children. Please, you have to understand. Lucas is just a little boy. He didn't ask for any of this." She wasn't attacking me. She was begging me, as one mother to another, to see her son. In that moment, David's betrayal crystallized into something even more monstrous. He wasn't just cheating on me. He was trying to abandon a 3-year-old child, his son. He was willing to erase a little boy to save the facade of our life. The man I loved was proposing a solution built on the emotional annihilation of an innocent child. That was the line. That was the irreversible choice. I couldn't be part of that. I wouldn't let my children have a father who was capable of that. I filed for divorce. The courtroom hallway was all cold marble and echoing footsteps. The legal battle was bitter, a brutal dissection of assets and parenting time. But the real fight was in my own heart. I had to explain to Ben and Emma that their dad had another son, that they had a half-brother. I had to watch them grapple with that betrayal, their confusion, and anger a second, more painful wave to survive. David moved to be near Lucas. He and Alina are trying to make a go of it, for the child's sake. I am alone in the quiet suburban home that no longer feels like a sanctuary. The cracks were always there. I just didn't know how deep they ran, all the way to another city, another life. Sometimes, late at night, I look at that sunflower family portrait, and I don't see a lie anymore. I see a moment that was true, before the split in our timeline. And I see the ghost of a little blonde-haired boy who, through no fault of his own, finally made me see the man I was married to. The picture didn't just unravel our family. It showed me that it was already a tapestry woven with someone else's threads, and all I could do was gently, painfully, pull mine free. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It's one of the hardest things I've ever had to share, but there's a strange comfort in knowing you're not alone in life's earthquakes. If you've ever faced a truth that changed everything, I'd be honored to hear about your experience in the comments below. Please share your thoughts, and if this resonated with you, consider subscribing for more real stories about love, survival, and the messy human journey we're all on together. Story 3. The DNA test that broke our family. I am sitting on the floor of my daughter's bedroom, holding a piece of paper that has just rewritten every memory I have of the last 9 years. The sound of my husband, Ben, making breakfast downstairs is a cruel, normal melody. The smell of bacon and coffee should be comforting. It's Saturday. It's our routine. But all I can hear is the rushing in my ears, a static roar that drowns out everything but the words on this lab report. Probability of paternity, 0. He is not her father. My daughter Maya is not his. And the worst part, the part that is turning my bones to ice, is that I already knew. Some deep, secret part of me I've spent a decade silencing knew this truth was a possibility. I just never, ever thought I'd have to see it printed in stark, clinical black and white. Our normal was a beautiful, carefully constructed thing. A quiet suburban home with a wraparound porch Ben painted himself. Mornings were a ballet of packed lunches, finding lost library books, and the gentle chaos of getting a 9-year-old to school. Ben was the rock, the steady one. He made the coffee strong, fixed the squeaky stair, remembered to rotate the tires. I was the planner, the emotional core, the one who remembered teacher conferences and pediatrician appointments. Maya was our university vibrant, curious girl with Ben's calm smile, and I'd always thought my mother's eyes. But there were cracks. Tiny, hairline fractures I'd learned to plaster over with excuses. The way Ben would sometimes look at her when she was laughing with a tilt of her head, and a shadow would pass over his face, so quickly I'd convince myself I imagined it. The complete absence of any baby pictures of him on our walls, his childhood albums lost in a move, he'd said. My own mother's occasional, offhand comments. She's got Ryan's spirit, doesn't she? Shed said once, years ago. And when I'd frozen, Shed backtracked. Oh, just that fearless energy. Ryan. A name I hadn't allowed myself to think of in a decade. A name that belonged to a different life, a different Sarah. I'd chalked it up to her getting confused. But the seed was planted. Have you ever had a secret so heavy you feel like you're living a double life just by keeping it inside? Not a secret you're actively keeping from others, but one you're keeping from yourself. A truth you're so afraid of that you build a whole personality around avoiding it. The escalation began with a cough. Just a persistent, dry cough Maya couldn't shake. The pediatrician, thorough and kind, suggested a full workup. Just to rule anything out, she said, and it might be useful to have a more complete genetic history. Any hereditary conditions on either side. Ben had listed his family's history of hypertension. I listed mine, and then the doctor looked at us both and said, "A simple DNA test can sometimes give us the clearest picture of potential risks." Ben had agreed immediately. "Whatever she needs," he said, squeezing my hand. His hand felt warm, sure. Mine was cold and limp. I remember the exact fluorescent buzz of the office lights, the too sweet smell of the antibacterial soap, the cheerful dinosaur pattern on the nurse's scrubs as she swabbed Maya's cheek, then Ben's. I watched the cotton tips swirl in the plastic vials, and my stomach dropped like a stone. I said nothing. To object would have been a confession of its own. The weeks of waiting were a special kind of purgatory. Ben was his usual attentive self. He researched childhood asthma. He installed a humidifier in Maya's room. He was the perfect, concerned father. I was a ghost moving through my own life, cooking dinners I couldn't taste, having conversations I couldn't remember. I'd look at Maya's face, searching for Ben in it. The shape of the eyes, the chin. I'd frantically pull up photos of him as a boy on his old Facebook, comparing. The similarities I'd built my life upon began to feel imagined, subjective. I was dismantling my own reality, brick by brick. The email arrived on a Friday afternoon. Test results available. My breath stopped. Ben was in the home office on a call. I could hear the low murmur of his voice. I clicked the link. I entered the secure portal. The world narrowed to the glow of my laptop screen. There it was, not just a low probability, a definitive absolute zero, a biological impossibility. The room didn't spin, it simply vanished. I was floating in a silent, white void with those numbers. I heard myself make a small, animal sound. Then, the practical part of my brain, the survivor, kicked in. I closed the browser. I cleared the history. I walked upstairs on legs that didn't feel like mine, into Maya's room, and slid down the wall to the floor. That's where I am now. Holding the printout I secretly made later at the library, the paper trembling in my hands. For a few days, I lived in a state of false hope, a bizarre calm. The secret was mine alone. I could control it. I could protect everyone. Ben didn't know. Maya was happy. Our family was intact. Maybe the test was wrong. I clung to that absurd, desperate thought. Researched lab errors. But the piece was brittle. Every time Ben hugged Maya, every time he called her my girl, it was a dagger. The lie was a living thing between us, growing larger and more poisonous by the hour. I started having waking nightmare-esque visions of Ben leaving, of Maya's heartbroken confusion, of my own life crumbling to dust. The weight of it was crushing me. I realized this wasn't about protecting them anymore. It was about me suffocating. The climax didn't happen in a dramatic shout. It happened at the kitchen island over a bottle of wine 2 days later. The silence had become too loud. Maya was at a sleepover. The house was unbearably quiet. Ben was scrolling through his phone, showing me a funny video. I wasn't laughing. I was just staring at him, at the kind lines around his eyes, at the wedding band on his finger. "We need to talk," I said. My voice was a stranger's. He put his phone down, sensing the shift. "Okay, what's up?" I couldn't look at him. I focused on the grain of the granite countertop. Maya's DNA test. The results came back. "Oh, right, I meant to check that. Is everything okay? No red flags." His voice was pure, unadulterated concern. "No," I whispered. "No red flags for her health." "Thank God," he breathed, reaching for his wine glass. "Ben," I said, forcing my eyes to meet his. The test, it included paternity confirmation. His hand froze midway to his mouth. The air left the room. I saw the understanding dawn on him, not from my words, but from the absolute devastation on my face. The glass slowly lowered. "What are you saying?" "The probability of paternity is 0. The words fell like stones. "You are not her biological father." The color drained from his face. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He just stared at me, and in his eyes, I saw a decade of our life told through late-night feedings, the first days of school, the teaching her to ride a bike, the bedtime stories, all of it flicker, warp, and threaten to dissolve. What? It was less a word than a punched-out breath. And then I told him about Ryan, the college boyfriend, the intense, volatile relationship that ended in a catastrophic blow-up a few months before I met Ben. The overlap I had buried so deep it almost convinced myself it didn't exist. One night of sheer, stupid weakness and grief after the final breakup with Ryan. A single night. Then I met stable, kind, wonderful Ben a month later. When I found out I was pregnant, the timeline was tight, blurry. I wanted it to be Ben's. I needed it to be Ben's. So I chose that reality. I built my life on that choice. He listened in utter silence. When I finished, the quiet was heavier than any scream. He stood up, his chair scraping the floor. He walked to the back door, looked out into our dark yard. His shoulders were rigid. Minutes passed. All this time, he finally said, his voice hollow, echoing in the empty kitchen. 9 years. You let me love her, you let me be her father, knowing there was a chance. I didn't know, I pleaded, tears finally breaking. I was afraid to know. That's worse. He roared, whirling around, his composure shattering. That's so much worse, Sarah. You chose ignorance. Built our family on a maybe. He paced, running his hands through his hair. Who is Ryan? Does he know? No, he never knew. We had no contact after that night. I have no idea where he is. He let out a bitter, broken laugh. So I am not her father, but some ghost is. And you're not even sure. You are her father, I cried. In every way that matters. Don't, he shouted, pointing a trembling finger at me. Don't you dare use that platitude on me right now. It all matters. The biology matters. The lie matters. The last 9 years of my life believing something that wasn't true matters. He looked at me with a gaze so full of pain and betrayal it felt physical. I need to get out of here. He grabbed his keys from the bowl. He didn't pack a bag. He didn't look back. The door closed with a soft, final click. I sat alone at the island, in the ruins of the life I had built on a secret, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the only sound in my shattered world. That was 6 months ago. Ben moved into an apartment. We're in therapy, separately and sometimes together. It's grueling. Some days, I think he might find a way to forgive me. Other days, the chasm between us feels infinite. Maya knows Daddy and Mommy are working through some grown-up problems. She asks when he's moving back home. I have no answer. He still sees her every weekend. He still is, in all the ways he can be, her dad. But the trust between him and me is ash. I look at my daughter, my beautiful girl, and I feel a love so profound it aches, alongside a guilt so vast it threatens to drown me. I started this story on the floor of her room, holding a truth that broke us. Now I am learning, day by painful day, that the hardest part isn't the breaking. It's sitting in the wreckage, picking up the pieces, and not knowing if you'll ever be able to rebuild something whole again, or if you just have to learn to live amongst the ruins. Thank you for listening to my story. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to share, but there's a strange comfort in not carrying it alone anymore. If you've ever faced a truth that shattered your world, or if you're struggling to rebuild after a betrayal, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your stories remind us we're not alone. If this resonated with you, please give this video a like and subscribe for more real, raw stories about love, family, and the difficult road to healing. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe for more Reddit relationship stories.